优大的老师来跟各位来分享啊，比赛的时候要注意的事情，跟等一下进入那个测试的那个环节啊，所有的一些细节啊，那让各位知道我们比赛是怎么样来做评分的啊。所以下来我就有请我们的优大的老师，请问优大的老师在现场了吗？ Hi Jasmina。
嗨，大家好。
嗨，是老师好啊。那下来我就把时间交给你了。
好，谢谢。
好，谢谢。
OK，老师们、同学们，大家好。我会用英文来讲解一下比赛的细节。Okay, a very good morning to everyone. Now, for this session, I would like to brief about the final competition. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jasmina Khaw from FICT, UTAR. Here is the guideline. This is the outline for today's topic. First of all, we will look at the rules and regulation of final competition. Then we will follow with competition platform, sample qualifying test, and also IDE installation. For IDE installation, we will just show you the information where you can get to try to download in your own PC. Finally, we will look at the final question, the sample of final question. Okay, first of all, we would like to look at the rules and regulations. Okay, we already summarized all of the information inside the table. Okay, for the first content, it will be the conduct mode. For the final competition, we will conduct in physical mode, but it will still depend on the pandemic situation and MCO implementation. So hopefully we are able to conduct in physical mode. For the participant information, for those who are qualified to the final competition, you have to form 3 members per team. So there's only 3 members per team. And the duration for the final competition will be 3 hours only. You have to answer 8 questions. So there are only 8 questions for the final competition. For the programming language that you are going to use to solve those questions will be either C or C++ or Java. So there's no other language like Python and so on. They are not allowed. So you are only need to use C++ or Java, either one. Now we look at the resources. Each team will be provided 1 computer with a minimum spec of Intel Core i3 4th Gen, 8 GB of RAM, 120 GB of SSD. So this is the computer that we will provide in the venue of final competition. And the compilers that we are going to use to solve those questions will be Dev C++ with the MinGW, or Visual Studio Code with the extension of C++ or Java extension. So depends on you, you want to use C++ or Java. So you just choose either of the extension of the Visual Studio Code to complete your question. Candidates are not allowed to use other computing devices. Means that you are not supposed to bring your own laptop, tablet into the competition venue. We will provide pens and papers for you to draft your code to the solution of the question. So you only have pens and papers. You cannot bring in any computer or tablet into the final competition venue. Now we look at the format of the competition. The competition will only consist of 8 questions, and you can answer the questions in any order. If you are confident with the question 2 and 4, then you can proceed to do the question 2 first, then followed by question 4. This is because for the score part, we will take into the account of the duration of the time that you use to complete your question. Of course, we will look at the number of correct first. If there are more than one team that having the same number of correct answer, then we will look at the duration of the time. So make sure you can shorten your duration of the time by completing the question that you are confident with first, okay? For the submission procedures, for each question, participants can submit their solution for evaluation purpose whenever they are ready. Means that when you have done your question 2 and you feel that it's already complete, then you can just submit question 2 first. Then we will straight away evaluate the question and tell you whether the answer is correct or not. For the solution, if you are using C++, you have to submit .exe file. For C++ programming language, you are going to submit .exe file. If you are using Java programming language, you are going to submit .jar file. So this is C++ and Java. Only submit executable file. Timestamps are electronically recorded for each submission. Means that after you complete question 2, then the timestamp for question 2 will be recorded. Then after that, when you submit question 4, another timestamp for question 4 will be recorded. Okay, now we look at judging criteria. Okay, for the evaluator, they will run your executable file that you have submitted with our own test input data. We want to check whether the output is correct. So make sure you don't hard code your code to get the output. So we will have our own test input to check whether your output is correct or not. Competitors will receive notice from the judge indicating whether or not the solution is correct. So when you submit question 2, after we evaluate, we will tell you whether your submission of the answer is correct or not. So there is only correct and wrong. There's no partially correct. So make sure that you fulfill all of the requirements in the question. So there's no partially correct, only correct and wrong. So if it's wrong, then you can decide whether you want to try it again or not. But if you try again, you want to resubmit again, and eventually you get correct, so penalty will be imposed. So later on, we will look at the time of the penalty. How are it going to be imposed? The winning team will be the team which answers the most questions correctly in the shortest amount of time. So we will look at the number of correct of the answer of the team. If there are more than one team having the same amount of the answer is correct, then we will compare the amount of time that the team used for solving the question. How are we going to calculate the total time, the duration of the time that competitors use to solve their questions? The total time is the summation time of the last correct solution, plus additional penalty time for incorrect submissions of the question which eventually the team solved correctly. So penalty only imposed when the team is eventually submitted the correct answer. So each time of the wrong submission will impose 10 minutes penalty if eventually the answer is correct. If you have tried a few rounds and you decided to give up, then there is no penalty will be applied on the question. So it will only apply when the question, the answer is eventually become correct. Okay, here we have 4 examples. These 4 examples has different cases, has different scenario. Example 1, we have team 1. Example 2, we have team 2. Example 3, we have team 3. And example 4, we have team 4. Okay, for team 1, let's say we have question A and question B. For question A, the team 1 answer it incorrectly after 30 minutes. Means that the team 1 submit the answer at 30 minutes, but the answer is incorrect. So the evaluator will tell the team 1, your answer is incorrect for question A. So team 1 has to decide whether they want to resubmit or not. So team 1 has decided to submit again. So after 35 minutes, the answer is correct. So the team 1 can proceed to the question B. And the team 1 answer the question B correctly after 62 minutes. So assume that we only have question A and question B. So now we want to calculate the duration of the time that team 1 used to solve the question A and question B. Okay, the formula will be the last correct submission time plus penalty of time, if any. So the total time will be 62. So 62 is the last correct submission time. And penalty is imposed for the question A because question A has submitted one time incorrectly and the second time is correct. So the total duration of time that team 1 used will be 72 minutes. For example 2, team 2 answer question B incorrectly. So for team 2, they decide to answer question B first. Maybe they are confident with question B, so they decided to answer question B first. However, they answer incorrectly after 10 minutes. After that, they want to try again and submit the correct answer after 18 minutes. So after that, they can proceed to question A. For question A, they answer incorrectly after 16 minutes. And then they try to attempt again, and after 65 minutes, they manage to submit the correct one. So the total time will be the last correct submission time, which is 65 plus the penalty. So for question B just now, they have attempted one time after the wrong submission of the answer. So we have to impose 10 minutes for question B. For question A, they also attempt one more time after the wrong submission. So we have to impose another 10 minutes for question A. So the total duration time will be 65 plus 10 plus 10. You will get total of 85 minutes. Now we look at the example 3. Team 3 answer question A correctly after 15 minutes. So they can straight away proceed to the question B. However, question B, they have submitted the wrong answer for 3 times. And eventually, they managed to submit the correct answer at 54 minutes. So how about the penalty of time? For question B, the team 3 has tried 3 times with the wrong submission. Only get the 4th submission with correct one. So we have to impose 3 times of the 10 minutes. Here we have the last submission of the correct answer with 54 minutes plus 3 times of the 10 minutes penalty. So we have 54 plus 30, we get 84 minutes. For example 4, we have team 4 answer question A correctly after 25 minutes. After that, they proceed to the question B. However, for question B, they keep submitting wrong answer for the 3rd time. They already submitted for 3 times and they decided to give up after all the submissions are wrong. So no penalty will be applied because the question, the answer of the question B is eventually become false, not correct also. So there's no penalty will be imposed. So the total time of the submission, the total time of the duration that team 4 used to answer the question will be 25 minutes only. Okay, this is the summary of the table for the example 1 until 4 just now. Now we look at team 1. So they answer question A and B. This is follow the sequence. Time for last correct solution submission. So the last correct solution submission will be question B at 62. Now we look at the number of attempts after the first answer submission is wrong. So they only attempt for the question A one time, and eventually it becomes correct. So here we have yes. So if it's yes, then we have to impose the penalty. So only one time, 1 multiplied by 10. So we have 10. So for question B, there is no penalty. So the total of the penalty will be 10 minutes. Now we have to calculate the number of question answered correctly. For team 1, they answered correctly 2. And the total time will be last submission time plus penalty. Then we have the last submission of time is 62 plus penalty 10. Then we have 72. So now we look at team 2. They answer the order of the question with B only A. So for question B, for question B, they have attempted one time after the wrong submission. So the answer of the question is eventually become correct. So we have to impose the penalty. For question A, there's also one time attempt after the wrong submission and eventually become correct. So we have to impose another 10 minutes. So 65 is the last correct submission of the time. Then the total of penalty will be 10 plus 10, you have 20. Then the number of questions that the team answered correctly will be 2. Then the duration of time will be 65 plus 20, so you have 82. For team 3, they answer question A only B. And the last correct solution submission time will be 54. And we check for the question A. So for the first time, they already submitted correctly. So there's no more attempt. Then for question B, they try out 3 times, only get the answer correctly. So we have to impose 3 times of the penalty. So 3 multiplied by 10, we have 30. So the total penalty for team 3 will be 30. And the last submission time of the correct answer will be 54. So 54 plus 30, we have 84. And the last team, team 4, they answer question A and B. They answer question A correctly at 25. But for question B, they have attempted for 3 times, but eventually it's not correct. So there is no penalty will be imposed. So at the end, the total time of the duration of team 4 will be 25. But the number of question answered correctly will be only 1. So the ranking will be based on the number of question answered correctly first. So we have 3 teams answer correctly for the amount of 2. And team 4, we have 1. So we just compare the time of team 1, team 2, and team 3. So the shortest time will be 72. So team 1 will get the ranking of first place. And the second place goes to team 3, 84. And the third one will be team 2, 85. So no matter how long the penalty is, you have to make sure that you have the shortest time duration based on the formula of last correct submission time plus penalty. Okay. Okay, this is just the overall flow of the competition. This is just the summary of the previous briefing. So I will briefly go through it. So here we have start. For start, we will release the question and you can start to solve the question. Okay, you have to check that before you submit, it's still within the competition time or not. If yes, then you can just proceed the answer submission. You can submit answer by answer. So if you have complete question 2 first, then you can just submit question 2. Then we will evaluate. We will get the timestamp that you have submitted the question 2. We will record it down, then we will evaluate. We will tell you that whether the answer that you submitted is correct or not. So if the answer is not correct, then we go to no. Then you can choose whether you want to attempt again. If yes, then you just proceed to the question solving again and just proceed to the same procedure. But if the answer is correct, then we have to check if it's the first time submission, because we want to see that how many times of the penalty that we have to impose. If this is not the first time submission when the answer is correct, then we have to impose penalty. Else, you can just proceed to other question if there's any. So the process is just keep repeating. If there's no more question left, let's say you already complete 8 questions in 3 hours. If you have managed to complete 8 questions in 3 hours, then we will record down the total time. The last correct submission time with the penalty, if any, then we will have the result. So the result will take into the account of the number of correct answers that you have. If more than one thing is having the same amount of the correct answer, only we will look at the time duration. The group that having the shortest time duration will be the winner. Okay, for the competition platform. For the competition platform, we will use UTAR Weber. So any announcement will be made in the Weber, and the question that we are going to release will be through Weber also. Then if you want to submit your final competition answer, you have to submit through Weber also. Then we also have the forum feature in the Weber. Now we look at sample qualifying test. This qualifying test will be conducted later from 12 p.m. until 1:20. So these are just MCQ questions, but this MCQ question will come from 4 categories. Okay, for the first, sorry, someone is drawing on the screen. Okay, for the first category, it will be basic concepts. So it will be the question based on the basic concepts. So here's the example of the MCQ question. So you just need to choose one of the suitable answer. So this is basic concept. And here we have the second category, which is arithmetic and logic. So the MCQ question will be based on the arithmetic and logic. So you can see that we have some mathematic arithmetic operator. And the third one will be algorithm analysis. So you will be given a scenario that you have to solve the problem. And the last one will be code reading. So you are given the code and you have to interpret what is the code going to show. So you need to understand the code. By reading the code, you choose one of the answer. So for this question, what does the following piece of code do? So what is the code doing? So here we have nested for loop. Okay, for the qualifying test, later on we will conduct it at 12. So you have to log into you have to browse the website. This is the website link. And with the username and password. So how are you going to get your username and password? So you have to log into this website to access the qualifying test. So for the username, we have the string of NC. So by default, we have NC plus the 4 digits of your registered phone number. And also we have to add in the last 2 characters of your student ID. So we only take into the account of digit and also letter. The symbol is not counted. So for password, by default, we have the capital letter of P plus the last 7 digits of your registered phone number. Okay, now we look at the example. This is the phone number for the student 1 and the student ID. So how are we going to form the username? So by default, we have NC in capital letter. Then we have the last 4 digits of your phone, 6789, plus the student ID, last 2 characters. So last 2 characters must be digit or letter. So here we have digits. So we have NC 678956. So this is how you form your username. This is the password. You have the capital P with the 7 digits of your last handphone number. So with the combination of the username and password, you are able to log into the web to access the qualifying test. So this is the second example. The last 4 digits of your registered handphone number will be 9013, and the student ID we have the last 2 characters include the symbol 8-B. So the symbol is not counted. So here we have username NC 9013 from the last 4 digits of your registered phone number, and we have 8B from your student ID. And for the password, we have the capital P with the 7 digits of your registered phone number. So with the combination of username and password, you are able to log into the web. If you are still not sure, then you can provide your name, school, and student number in the chat, so we will assist you as soon as possible. Okay, this is the sample of the screenshot of the qualifying test later. So this is the MCQ question. You can see the question is here, then you have the answer. So you have to choose one of the answer. Same for the question too. After you read the question, you have to choose one of the answer. At the bottom of the page, you will see 2 buttons, Save without submitting, Submit all, and Finish. So now we look at the Save without submitting first. So why you need to click on the Save without submitting? Because let's say if you have already done 5 questions and accidentally you close the website or you lost the connection, when you try to log in back, your answer is still there. So you don't have to redo. If you don't click Save without submitting after you attend some of the question, maybe if you lost the connection and try to come back to this page, you will lose all of your answer. So you have to redo. Maybe you might not have enough time to complete it. So this is a good practice for you to save without submitting after you attend some of the question. So after you finish all of the question, you also can click Save without submitting because maybe you want to check again your answer. So before the time ends, make sure that you click the button of Submit All and Finish. When you click Submit All and Finish, only your qualifying test is completed. So you submit all of the answer. So make sure you submit all and finish before the time ends to complete your qualifying test. So we will notice about the result after the qualifying test, maybe after a few days. So we will notify you whether you are passed or failed. So this 2 button is very important. Make sure you make use of it. Okay, for the ID installation. Here we have some of the video link. This is for C++. We have part 1, part 2, and part 3, and we have Java with the link here. So you can have a look. For the competition venue, you don't have to install the installer. We will install it for you. But you can just try to install in your own PC or laptop to practice yourself. So you are familiar with the compiler. So you are not panicked on the day of the competition. So this is just for your own use. You just install in your own computer and practice it yourself. Okay, now we look at the sample final questions. Here we will brief you about 2 samples. Okay, the first question is on the day of the week, Gregorian calendar. So this is the title of the question. So make sure you go through the question very detailed, because the submission of the answer is only right or wrong. There's no partially correct, okay? So for the description, the Gregorian calendar is the most used solar dating system in the world. It was introduced in October 1582 by Pope Gregory XIII, and it spaced leap years to make its average year 365.2425 days long. That's determined by the Earth's revolution around the sun. The rule for leap years is, so here we have the leap years rules. So we have to fulfill these 3 criteria only that we can get the leap years. Leap years means that the February has the month of the February has 29 days. Okay, for the first criteria, you have to make sure that the year can be divisible by 4. It can be divided by 4 and get the integer. After that, you have to further validate if it's a leap year by divide it with the number of 100. If it's divisible by 100, it's still not a leap year yet. It's not a leap year yet. So you have to perform the division of 400. So if these 3 criteria are met, then you have the leap years. For example, the years 1700 and 1800, 1900, they are not leap years, even though they can divide by 4 and 100. But they are not divisible by 400. So these 3 years are not leap years. And for years 1600 and 2000, they are because they can divide by 4, 100, and also 400. So you have to fulfill all the requirements. Okay, now we look at the format of the month, day, and year. So for January, we have 31 days, February 28 days, provided it's not a leap year. If it's a leap year, then it will be 29 days. So you have to check. So for March, you will have 31 days, April 30 days, and so on. So in total, we have 665 days. So for leap year, February has 29 days instead of 28. So you have to check. On the other hand, a week is imposed of 7 days. So we have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So it will be keep repeating the same from week to week. And the question is, given that the first day of the Gregorian calendar was 15 October 1582, which was a Friday. So now you have to write a program to accept a specific date with the format of day, month, and year as the input. Then you have to calculate which day of the week the date corresponding with. So for example, you have the input of 17 for the day, month you have April, and year you have 2021. Then the correct output will be Saturday. If you have 29 of February in 2100 year, then the correct output is this is not a valid date. So you have to validate if 2100 year is leap years or not. If it's not, then it shouldn't be 29 days in February. Okay, now we look at the requirements. So you have to check for the input format, input validation. You have to make sure that at least we have the day from 1 until 31. For month, we have January until December, 1 until 12 only. And the year will be starting from 1582 until 9999. So if the input is valid, then the correct output is the day of the week corresponding to the date. If the input is not correct, it's not valid, then you have to output the error message. This is not valid date. Please key in another date so the user can input another correct date again. So this is just the formula for you to calculate the day of corresponding date. So we have the formula here. Y is representing year, then M is representing month, and D is representing day. T is the offset, the month offset. So here we have provided you the offset. And you have to calculate the day. Before you calculate the day, you have to calculate the virtual year. So this is just the formula. You just follow it to get the day with the corresponding of date. So this is the sample output. Here we have the sample one. You key in the day, you key in the month, you key in the year. So if it's valid, then it will output is Saturday. So here we have another sample output. You have 29. Then we have February with the year of 2021. So 2021 is not divisible by 4, 400, and 100. So it's not leap year. So cannot be, February cannot have 29 days. So this is invalid input. So you have to key in another date. So user has to key in another date. If it's valid, then you will come up with the output of the day of the week. So it is Monday. So this is the solution in C++, just a suggested answer. First of all, we have to declare the variables that we have to use. Then we just ask the user to input day, month, and year. Then we have to check if they input correctly. This is just input validation. So you have to check for the year if it's within 1582 until 9999. Same for the month. If it's from January until December only. So if it's incorrect, then you have to display the error message. This is not a valid date, so you have to key in another date. So this is just the input validation. Okay, for month February, so we have to check how many days it has. So we just follow the rules that we have just now. If it's divisible by 4, if it's divisible by 100 and 400. If it is, then it will be leap year. Okay. If leap year, then we can proceed of 29 days. Else it will be just 28 days. Also, we have to check only January, March, May, July, August, October, and December has the day of 31. Else, like April, June, September, they only has 30 days. So this statement is just to check if the input is from 1 until 31 for the day. If invalid, then the user just rekeying again. So this is just the formula to calculate the day of the week. After that, we just follow the case. Depends on which case that you get, so it will display. If it's Sunday, Monday, and so on. So this is just follow the case with the formula that you found out. So this is about C++. We also give you the example of the solution in Java. The algorithm and the step are similar to C++, just that they have different syntax. So you can have a look yourself. The flow is the same, just that we have different syntax between C++ and Java. Okay, now we look at the second sample final question. The title is Guess the Number Game. Description. One of the simplest two-player game is Guess the Number. The first player thinks a secret number in some known range well. The second player attempts to guess the number. After each guess, the first player answer either is higher, lower, or correct. So depending on the secret number, if it's higher, lower, or equal to the guess. Okay, now we proceed to the question. In guess the number game, computer will take the role of the first player. So you will be the second player. The computer is going to randomly generate an integer from 1 until 100. So you have to keep guessing until you get the correct one, or depends on how many iterations and how many turns that you have. So the computer will let you know if the guess number is too high or too low, or is correct. Here we have the requirements. Your program must fulfill the following. So you have to check if the user input is from 1 until 100 only. So if the input is valid, then it will show you the output of your guess is higher than the right number, or your guess is lower than the right number, or you win. If you have exactly the number, same with the computer generated, then you have the message of you win. If the user input an integer that is not within the range, or they input alphabet A, B, C, D, or symbol, then you have to display the message of this is an invalid input. Please enter a value from 1 to 100 only. Okay, for the invalid input, the number of turns is not counted. So let's say you are limited to 10 times only. So if you have invalid input, they will not minus the number of turns that you still have. So now we look at the second requirements. Compare that number with the random number. Tell the user each time if he or her guess was too high or too low. Or if the number guess is wrong. So for this question, we limit the number of turns with 10 times only. So here we have the sample. Guess an integer with a value in the range of 1 to 100. So this is the user input. User need to input. After input, then you have to compare. If your guess is higher, then it will be display the message of your guess is higher than the right number. Number of turns left, so how many turns that you have. So if the first one is incorrect, then you have to minus 1. So 10 times minus 1, then you have left 9 turns only. Okay, if you guess the exactly correct number with the number that computer generated, then you have to display the message of you win. Then you have to display the correct number also. So the number is, so this will be the correct guess of the number. Then you use how many turns. So you have to calculate how many turns that you have used to guess the right number. Show the correct number after 10 attempts. So if you have finished all the attempts 10 times and you get all wrong, then it will display the message. You lost, the right answer is, then it will display the correct answer for you. Okay, this is the example. How are you going to write your program? So based on the example of the output, then you have to draft out how you're going to code. So when your program starts to run, it will generate random integer from 1 to 100. So let's say if the correct guess number will be 67, then you just keep it in your variable first. Then you have to display the message guess an integer with a value in the range of 1 to 100. You have 10 attempts to hit the right answer. So for the first time, if the player enters 50, then you have to show your guess is lower than the right number because the right number is 67 and 50 is lower. So you have to display this message. Then you have to minus the number of turns. So 10 minus 1, you get the number of turns left is 9. So for the second time, the player continued to enter 75. So 75 is higher than 67. So it will display the message, your guess is higher than the right number. The number of turns left is, so 9 minus 1, we get 8. How if the player continues to enter? This time they enter the number with decimal point. So we only, the program should only accept integer. Integer means the whole number without decimal point. So just a whole number. So if the user key in number with decimal point, then it will show the invalid input. Then you have to ask the user to input again, but the number of terms still remain 8. How if the user key in the symbol? If the user key in the symbol, it will also show the error message. This is an invalid input. Please enter a value from 1 to 100 only. The number of turns left is 8. So it still remains 8 because the input is not correct, it's not valid. Okay, now the player try to input the integer of 180. So 180 is out of the range of 1 to 100. So this is also invalid input. So you have to display the message, this is an invalid input, and ask the user to input again with the correct range. Then the number of turn left is still remain 8. Okay, if finally player enter the value of 67, which is equal to the correct guess number, then it will display you win. The number is 67. You use 3 turns to guess the right number. If after 10 attempts, then it will straight away display the message, you lost. The right answer is 67. So here we have the sample solution in C++. For the same, we have to declare the variable that we have to use. Then we generate the random number between 1 to 100. Now we have to display the message to tell the user that he can only enter the number from 1 until 100 only. So he has 10 attempts. So for these statements, this is just to check if the user key in the correct input. This is just the input validation. If they key in correct 1 until 100. If it's out of range, if it's not integer, then you have to display the error message. So if you have tried until 10 times, you will display this message and straight away show the correct number. Okay, if the user input is within the range, then you have to check. If the number that user guessed is equivalent to the number that computer generated, then it will display you win. Then it will show the number of the correct guess. Then you use how many turns to guess the correct number. So if the guess number is less than the number of the computer generated, then it will display the message of the guess is lower than the right number. Then number of turns left, it will show. If the guess is larger than the number that computer generated, then it will show the message of your guess is higher than the right number. So this is just the do while loop. Just now we used do while loop. So if the user input incorrectly, so we just loop until 10 attempts. So this is the suggested solution for C++. And we also have Java. So the flow is the same just that the syntax are different. So you can have a look yourself. So this is the sample output 1. This is the first sample output. So you just display the message. So enter a number from 1 to 100. So 67 is the user input. Then the computer should generate the message based on the input. So same for the rest. Until you guess the correct number, then it will display you win. So the number is 12. You use 8 turns to guess the right number. So now here we have another sample output. Okay. So for the same, we have to display the message first to let the user know what they need to do. So they need to guess the number from 1 until 100 only with 10 attempts. So if the first input is 50, then it will generate the message if it is higher or lower. So here, this is the sample.
时间的关系，可能我们要加速了。
好。
呀，不好意思啊。
So if you have the decimal, you have the decimal input, then it will show the invalid input. Same for the symbol and so on. So after the 10 attempt, then it will show the message you lost. Then the right answer is 43. So that's the end of the briefing. Thank you very much. So now I pass back to the floor.
谢谢老师啊，我有看到非常多同学有各种各样的问题啊。下来就是我们进行今天的最后一个环节，也就是让大家可以去做一个测试啊。所以大家如果在等一下参加这个环节的时候有 login 的问题，各位我能不能请秘书，我们一样有一个 WhatsApp 的群组啊。那我可以把 WhatsApp 的群组贴在这个 chat room 里面啊，各位可以去点击。如果你遇到 login 的问题，我们后台会有工作人员来协助各位啊。等一下12点钟我们就会正式开放了，有1个小时的时间正式给各位做测试啊。所以这个比赛的过程其实就是先进行第1个 round 的测试。那也跟各位报告一下，这个测试我们会每一场的工作坊结束前都会有一次这样的一个测试啊，所以各位可以不断的参加哦。如果你想要每一次都来检测是没有问题的，我们会取你每一次参加这个检测当中最好的成绩的那一次啊。所以如果你这次检测没有过，你下一次还是可以来。如果你这次觉得分数不错，你下次想再测也可以，我们会取你最高分的那一次，好不好？所以这样我们就可以让检测成功的这些同学们可以自由组队，3个人一队参加我们的大决赛。而大决赛呢，就是我们刚刚讲的那个老师有跟各位分享怎么计分的方式哈，好不好？那计分的方式，因为我们下来还有时间，在未来，因为到今年10月才会有这个比赛嘛，所以各位可以放心，先去进行测试，好不好？那大决赛的那个计分方式是怎么样的？各位还是继续可以在 Slido 里面去发问，我们还是会持续的来回答各位。好，那今天的工作坊非常谢谢各位今天全面的参与啊，也非常谢谢到目前为止线上还是有超过400多位的同学啊，请各位接下来的时间，我们今天的这个工作坊到这里就圆满结束啊。那在填那个。可能有一些同学没有要参加那个测试的，那同学们可不可以帮我一个忙？在 Slido 的另外 Slido 上面你有看到2个 tab 对不对？一个是 questions 对不对？一个是问题的啊 Q&A， 另外一个是 POLLS 就是 Pools， 请各位到那个 Pools 里面去填问卷可以吗？那个问卷是针对我们今天整个工作坊，希望各位可以回馈一些给我们自己做得好或者不好的部分，都请各位多多回馈给我们啊！请各位如果没有要参加检测的同学们，可以去那个地方帮我们填一下问卷。那参加检测的同学，你可以选择先回答问卷，或者直接先去做这个测验，测完了之后，也请同学们在 Slido 的那个地方点击 Pools Pools 那个地方。帮我们填一下问卷可以吗？好不好？那在这里啊，谢谢各位，也谢谢 UTAR 所有的团队老师们啊，参与我们今天的工作坊啊，所以我们工作坊到这里已经圆满结束了啊。那我们这个 Zoom 啊，还是会留在这里到1点钟，我们才会把它关掉啊。那各位可以选择留下来，或者当然你要离开也可以啊。那我们如果有任何问题，也可以留在这里问啊。那我们的同事如果有看到，我们的团队有看到，也会协助各位回答。可是尽可能到那个 Slido 里面去问，好不好？那接下来的时间就请各位可以去 填一下我们的问卷，或者有些同学可能要争取时间，就可以直接去我们的那个检测的那个页面直接做检测了，好不好？谢谢各位。那我们今天的这个工作坊到这里为止就圆满结束了，谢谢各位祝各位身体健康，期待在年底的时候在大决赛可以跟各位来见面好不好？谢谢各位，拜拜。